Hi, everyone. Thanks for signing in today to a Cloud Standards Customer Council webinar on a new ISO standard, ISO IEC 19941 for cloud computing, interoperability, and portability. We're going to be taking a sneak preview of this new specification. This is Tracy Berardi, Program Manager of the CSCC. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm joined by Mr. Mike Edwards. He's Senior Technical Staff Member at IBM, working on international standards. Mike is Chair of the UK ISO SC38 Cloud Computing Committee, a member of SC27 for Security and Privacy, TC307 for Blockchain and Distributed Ledger Technology, and SC41 for IoT. In short, Mike is a very key contributor to the CSCC and our liaison to ISO. He's worked on this new specification for interoperability and portability, and has offered to join us today to provide an overview and walk us through it. So we'll be presenting for about 45 minutes, and we'll save the last 15 for questions. So we'd love for you to enter some questions in the questions tab that we can address shortly here. And also, if you are interested in the attachments and links tab on Bright Talk, and it looks like some folks have accessed this, the CSCC has written a paper on interoperability and portability. It's a guide. We're currently updating it to version 2.0 to incorporate some of this work that Mike's presenting today, and V2.0 will be available later this year in December at some point. But if you'd like a link to the current paper, and that link will stay the same for V2, you have access to it. So Mike, I'll go ahead now and hand the presentation over to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Tracy, and hello, everyone. So, as Tracy has said, this is an overview and introduction to a standard that is just about to be published by ISO on cloud computing, interoperability, and portability. Let's just take you through then what we're going to cover today. We'll effectively cover the content of the standard. We'll look in general at what interoperability and portability means for cloud computing, and that's interesting in its own right, in that it's a topic that has caused some confusion and some interesting questions over the years, and I suspect that as more and more people use more and more cloud computing, it's likely to continue to be a topic of interest going into the future. To address the issues then of interoperability and portability when using cloud computing, the team put the standard together, created what they call facet models, and I'll take you through those. And then, based on those facet models, we look at the components of interoperability and portability as they relate to cloud computing, and then spend a particular amount of time looking at application portabilities, the components of that, and the dependencies that applications tend to have. And then we'll finish up with some considerations that apply to cloud services, looking across the various facets that are defined in the facet models. So, next thing I'd like to do is just to briefly discuss some abbreviations that you're going to come across in some of the material that follows. I use a lot of diagrams, and then some of these terms turn up. You can see why I compress them, because they're long terms. We've got CSC means the cloud service customer. CSP is going to be the cloud service provider. And then I think we all are reasonably familiar with infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, as IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. And then API for application programming interface. So where you see those acronyms, that's what they're going to mean. Okay, let's start out by looking at interoperability, and most of the diagrams you're going to see today are straight out of the standard. It's quite a diagram-based standard to help explain things. So if we start with interoperability as it relates to cloud computing, the first thing we need to be thinking about is, well, what does that mean? And there are basically two things that it means in terms of cloud computing, and one is the ability for an application that's running on typically a cloud customer system somewhere, on-premises typically, and that interacting with a cloud service of some kind. So that's the set of arrows with A underneath them on the left-hand side here. Then the other kind of interoperability that becomes relevant if you're using multiple cloud services is the ability for one cloud service to interoperate with a second cloud service, which is the case of B on the right-hand side here. So both of those are relevant. Originally, when we first started out using cloud computing, A was more important probably, but as more and more use gets made of cloud services and we use more of them in our organizations, then aspect B, interoperability between two different cloud services, becomes more and more important. Okay, so that's looking at interoperability from a very high level. Let's now move on to portability, and that's actually divided up into two separate parts. Tracy, I'm not able to get the slides to go forward for some reason. I'm clicking away here and nothing's happening.
Let me give this a...
Excuse us, folks, while we just sort out the technology here.
Oh, it's funny. It's doing the same for me. 1 second. I'm just going to pop over into a new browser. Maybe it's 1 second.
Yep.
Sometimes...
Well, it's the first time I've used this Bright View technology quite a lot. I haven't had this happen to me before.
Me either. Actually, we use this all the time, so I'm wondering, and since we're both going through it, 1 second.
Nothing like technology beginning in the way of things. Okay, I'll keep talking while you try to fix it, Tracy. Is that okay?
Yeah. 1 second. Yep.
So sorry, folks, we're not able to advance the slides, but I'll carry on talking, and hopefully the slide stuff will come back for us. So the question of portability is divided into two different parts. One is data portability, the portability of data sets, and the other is application portability, the portability of applications between different systems. So starting with data portability, as for interoperability, again, there are two sorts of considerations to worry about. We may need to port data from our customer systems, stuff we already have today on-premise, say, and need to port that data into a cloud service, or indeed take data out of cloud service and put it into a system of our own on-premises, either way. So that's the first kind of data portability. And then as for interoperability, we also have to worry about moving data from one cloud service potentially to another cloud service. So that's the second place where data portability comes into play. And we have to think about both of those different cases. There are different factors in play for each of them, and they have their own characteristics and considerations that we need to be worrying about.
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's Tracy. I just wanted to let you know I got this working again.
Thank you very much. That's very good. Very good.
Apologies, everybody.
No problem. I'm glad to see it's working. That's the main thing. So data portability, that's one of the very important factors when using cloud computing. Now, the next thing I talked about was application portability. So we want to take our applications, services, whatever, pieces of code. And again, there are two different aspects to that. We may port applications from our own on-premises stuff into a cloud service, or potentially in the opposite direction. Or we may be moving applications between two different cloud services. And that's case B again on here. So as with data, we